Maybe I could get you a McDonald's gift card for, Guam. But otherwise, we have an amazing steakhouse here in Casa Grande called The Hideout. And they give you this 500-degree rock stone that put your table, and then you get your steak at like rare, and you cook it fresh on the table, on the rock, on the stone. It's so good. And we've got a $50 gift card we're going to give away right now. And if you're a Yuma person and you don't think you're going to come back, or if you're all the way up on the other side of the valley, and now you guys, if you win, you could come. You just run back into town and eat, but we'll try to work out something for those who live out of town. But here we go. Gift card. Mike, would you come help me out? I'll do the shaking. Mike, you do the grabbing and unfolding, and let's see who the lucky winner for a date night to Hideout Steakhouse. So just so you know, I left one name in here and then filled it with just mine and Robin's name. And so we're going to see what the odds are if they're in our favor.
No way.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Perfect. Mike DeFreeze. I'm just kidding. You went to Mike DeFreeze. This thing is rigged. I'm just kidding. Ken and Karen Hayes get to go on a date night to Hideout Steakhouse. And so praise the Lord. And we got enough that you could take your pastor along with you, okay? Anyway, just kidding. That's not enough on there for two or four individuals, but enough for you guys to dine. But man, this is, yeah, well, if you get water, then I can get a steak. Yeah, and so Hideout Steakhouse has an amazing story. I'm very budget conscious, right? And we had a guest speaker. You will love this. We had a guest speaker about a year ago, and I took them out to eat to In-N-Out for dinner, which he would love that. You would love it. And so while I'm at In-N-Out, our treasurer calls me for something totally different. And I said, well, I'm In-N-Out right now. And with our guest speaker, she said, seriously, you took a guest speaker to In-N-Out? You need to take our guest speaker somewhere better. Take him to Hideout. Take him to, a steak. And she was picking on me, right? And I'm like, no, In-N-Out tonight, just a little cheaper. Well, the next guest speaker comes in. It's Dr. David Tice, and you would know him. And so me and Dave Tice and his family, I do take him to Hideout. We're sitting at Hideout. They give me the menu, and I'm looking at the menu, okay, and the steaks are, they're relatively expensive there at this restaurant. And so we're looking at the menu, and I look at the one and I said, how did I say it? What we're going to do was we're going to get one steak and split it. So that, again, even when I go out to eat like that, I'm thinking budget. And so Robin and I are going to split a steak, or me and Reese, we're going to split one and let them order what they want. And so I look at the menu. And so the way Hideout's menu is, it gives you the steak, and then it doesn't give you a dollar sign. It just gives you a number, 36, right? And that's the price. And so the lady comes to the table and I say, I want the 36. And she said, you sure? I said, yeah, I want the 36. Well, Dave on the cross from the table, he says, I'll just take what he's having. And he's going to split it as well, right? We're going to work the budget. We're at, $18 a plate, right? And so they go away. We come back, right? The lady brings the food to the table. She lays the plate in front of me, and there's this humongous steak. I mean, it is the biggest steak that I've ever seen on a plate personally, okay? And I said, whoa, wait a minute. I said, I wanted it split. Me and my son are splitting it. And I said, you didn't split this. She said, it is split. She turned around to the cart, she picked up another identical steak, and she walks down and hands it to Reese. And then I look over at Pastor Dave's, and it looks like a roast on Sunday. Right? And I went, whoa, wait a minute. She said, you ordered the 36 ounce. I said, no, I did not. I ordered the $36 steak. She said, no, I asked you because at that restaurant, you can order it by the ounce. And that's why she said, really? And I'm like, yeah, I didn't register. And I said, how much is this steak? And she said, oh, it's $70-something a steak. And I immediately, you could see the blood go out of my face, right? Robin's like, calm down, it's okay. I get on the phone with my treasurer right now, and I said, this is all your fault. I literally called her and said, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. And it's been a joke here at New Life. So you missed out. because you like In-N-Out, you missed out on a 36-ounce steak from Hideout, but I hope the Hayes gets to enjoy. That'll never pay for a 36-ounce steak. I just want you to know. But I'm excited to have you. Dinner is at 5:30, but we are a little flexible on that. And so take whatever time you need. We just want to hear from you and from God's word. And so come on and give us what you got.
So we've got some good questions. We'll come back to those, and maybe we'll involve, who was going to do the Q&A? Tim?
Yeah, me, you, and Tim.
Okay, so we'll try to get to that towards the end. And they're very good questions. If you still want to throw one in, please do that. So is it okay to stand down here for a few minutes? I can see you guys better. So, all right. Let me just open this up so I can get back to my notes. Let's turn over to 1 Corinthians 7. And I want to press in a little more to understanding your unique spouse. So we talked about the broad differences. We talked about the idea of having conversations, asking questions. To just caveat, I have talked in a few marriages where the husband is more relationally wired and the wife is more physically wired. So in that scenario, what drew him in was conversation and relational stuff. What drew her in was physical. And usually when I'm in these conversations, the husband is saying, I wish we made love more. And the wife is saying, I wish we talked more. And these are generalities. But in this particular conversation, the husband was like, I wish we talked more. And the wife was like, I wish we made love more. So it doesn't matter how everybody else is. It just, you guys got to figure out who you are. I will tell you, physiologically, scientifically, most men's sexual desires ebb and flow within a 48 to 72 hour period of time. And so I think there's a parallel there. Let me make it simple. If you ask the average guy, the average husband, how much would you like to make love to your wife? Most of them would go every day, but that's not realistic. Newlyweds maybe. But most of them would go, yeah, 2-3 times a week would be amazing. That would be phenomenal. And most wives would be like, whoa, that's a lot, you know. But if you said to the wife, well, how much would you like to just have some time with your husband to talk and walk and connect? And the first thing a wife would go, every day. But if that's not realistic because we have kids and work and other things, well, definitely a few times a week. Do you see the parallel there? Okay. And so I want you to look at 1 Corinthians 7. 1 Corinthians, hang on. I could probably do this from memory, but I'm going to open it just in case. All right. 1 Corinthians 7, verse 2. Verse 2 to verse 5 is God's formula for avoiding a standoff marriage that ends up in adultery. Okay, so if you think about the face-to-face, shoulder-to-shoulder illustration, when we had Juan and Wendy 2-3 months out on withholding from each other, this is where Satan gets in, and he says, your marriage is dead. And then he brings this person along who just gets you, who just connects with you. It's just emotion. It's at work or wherever. And one of the reasons it works is because you're starving. Relationally and physically, you're at this point where you're exasperated. It's like if your sexual needs and emotional and relational needs were water, you're really thirsty. You're really vulnerable. If you live at a buffet, if your spouse is an overflowing buffet of all of your needs, you're magnetizing your home. You're drawing your spouse to you. When you're in a standoff, it's like you've kinked the oxygen cord and you're not letting them breathe. And you're saying, you don't get to drink water. You don't get to breathe until I get to breathe. So you're creating this starvation marriage, this scarcity marriage. And you are creating now, it's never appropriate to do the wrong thing, no matter what, okay? but you're creating an environment where your spouse is vulnerable, more vulnerable to temptation. So look at what he says in verse 2. Nevertheless, to avoid fornication. Everything he's going to say now is how do we avoid sexual sin from within our marriage? How do we avoid going outside of our marriage and sinning? Let me caveat this. If you have had adultery in your marriage, it is recoverable. Many marriages are much stronger on the other side of an event like that. I'm not talking about a serial kind of pattern. The 3 biblical reasons justifiably for divorce would be adultery, abuse, or abandonment. God does not expect you to stay in a marriage where you're getting beat up. You've been abandoned. You didn't have the choice. No fault divorce. A person can opt out. You can have nothing to do with that. Or repeat adultery. Many people who there's a one-time event, there is recovery, there is counseling, there is genuine repentance. So with that caveat, let's look at this though. Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, and I pray that's your heart to avoid this, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. Now, I've talked about how we should have each other, but it really is up to your spouse. And I'm not talking about, there's like a counterpoint I didn't make to everything I say. There's a biblical approach to sex that is mutually gratifying, mutually enjoyable, mutually fulfilling, and very flourishing. There's a secular, outside of the bounds of the Bible approach to sex that's perverted, self-centered, and even unhealthy and abusive. And I would say learn about sex biblically and don't learn about it secularly, okay? Because within the bounds of the Bible, if sex is the cake, there's a million ways to decorate the cake. And we'll talk about that next. But understand that God's answer is let your spouse have you. And the question is, how do you want me? Now, again, there's boundaries on that. And I don't want to get too particular here, but I'm not going to make Dana do something that's not enjoyable for her and mutually fulfilling. And she's not going to make me do anything that isn't mutually fulfilling for it. We love each other. We're not trying to use and abuse and break each other, okay? We're loving each other. But within the boundaries of honoring God's created order and God's created beauty of this, I want Dana to have from me what she needs. And she wants me to have from her what I need. And there's been 35 years of understanding that. And I would say the learning curve of that was primarily the first 10 to 15. And then the playing out of it and the growing in it has been really the last 15, 20. And we talk about this all the time now. Our marriage is far from perfect, but we're at a place that it was so worth working towards. We so enjoy each other now at every level. I would tell you honestly, our relationship, our friendship, our connection, our time together is rich and fun. We like each other. Our physical life is wonderful and abundant, and it's better than it's ever been. I had this idea as a newlywed that like your best physical intimacy is probably on your honeymoon, and then it's just this long downhill. And then couples older than me said, actually, Carrie, it's like this upward climb. It gets better and better. I realize there's probably later in life physical limitations and illnesses. Maybe there's couples out there that cannot physically be and have what they used to have. So, everybody has to cope with things like that as they come. But outside of that, I would say that, well, I'll tell you this. There was an exhaustive study done it was either the late 90s or early 2000s by a college, and I forget which college did this study. I wish I had the information, but it was an exhaustive study on sexual fulfillment in adults in America. And the least fulfilled people were single adults who had no commitment in a relationship and who had many, many, many partners. They were absolutely lost on where to find sexual fulfillment. The most gratified, fulfilled people sexually were people in their 50s that had been married for their lifetime. They'd stayed faithful in their marriage. Let me just say it that way. I mean, whether there was a second marriage due to death or whatever, it wasn't the issue. They were committed to their covenant relationship. They weren't cheating. They weren't trying to have multiples. They were one person over decades. They were the most fulfilled, which is so counter to the secular narrative. Hollywood would say that's the worst way, but they don't even know how to find fulfillment. They can't stay married. So the truth of the matter is you're not going to hear that study in a movie or on Hallmark or in the news. They buried that study, but that was the results of the study. The happiest people were in their 50s, lifetime, staying faithful. So let's go back to the scripture. If you guys could put that back up, that'd be great. Where did we leave off? Okay, so he's going to continue expounding. What does this mean? Let the husband render. Now, it's going to say likewise also the wife. So think about the standoff. In our illustration, because I was in a hurry, Juan gave in and made the trip across the Great Divide to win Wendy. But Wendy could have made the trip across and bridged the Great Divide and ministered to Juan. Either one can do that. Either one can give in. Eventually, they both need to give in. I do believe that the husband is the head of the home. What does that mean? Is he the authoritarian? No. Does he have the right to his own way all the time? Is he the smartest? No. Is he, does he get to make every decision? No. He's the guy that Jesus is going to hold to account for the condition and direction of the home. He's the one put in charge of the state of things. I believe that means I'm responsible for Dana's flourishing or lack thereof, for her emotional well-being and relational well-being and physical well-being. I believe it's my responsibility to provide and make sure that we are following Jesus. In that loving setup, she should submit to that. She should submit to that love. She doesn't have to submit to my abrasion, my authoritarianism, my jerkiness. She has to submit to my lack of love. She's committed to submit to a loving husband. And that's an easy thing to submit to. That's like saying I have to submit to myself to eating In-N-Out Burger when I come to Phoenix. That's an easy thing to submit to. Your pastor, what do you like to eat? What do you want to eat? I said, just every day In-N-Out. That's all I want to eat. And that's basically all I have eaten since I've been here. It's been so good. But it's an addiction. So I sat there today for like 45 minutes eating, and I was like, this is so good. If you had offered me that steak or that In-N-Out burger, I'd be like, no, I'll just take In-N-Out. So, okay, let the husband render. Think about these words. Self-giving, render. Just willingly give. To the wife. What's he going to give? Do. Do. She deserves this. She's worthy of this. You have promised at a wedding altar you would do it. It's due. Do, and I love this word benevolence. It's not a word we use a lot, but it is sacrificial abundance put into another. Most churches have a benevolence fund, churches. And that the idea of a benevolence fund is someone that has need, that doesn't have enough, being blessed by others that have plenty. So maybe, I don't know if your church does this, some churches you can actually give to the benevolence fund. That money's put in reserve to pour out to people who have grocery needs and they can't pay their bills or whatever, lose their job, different things. Benevolence. You think of a person with enough giving to somebody who doesn't have enough. That's the picture. What your spouse needs, you have in abundance. And you are called into that relationship to give it, to pour it out. This is what's amazing to me. Dana wanted me to lock up the house. Dana wanted me to hug her in front of her dad and help her parents cut the turkey. Walk with her at the mall. And all kidding aside, those are easy things to do. It's not like I have to work and crush it and have $1 million and afford the nicest of everything. I can cut the turkey. I can hug her. I can take a walk. I mean, I can do the things that fuel her heart very, very easily. I just need to know what they are. I need to do them deliberately. So I have plenty of it. She needs it. And it's powerful. It's powerful in her life, okay? Just like her affirmation or her fulfillment physically, to me, is very powerful in my life. It ignites my heart in love for her. Do benevolence, and likewise also the wife to the husband. So take all that same construct, and the wife is to render, freely give, willingly give. To the husband, you promised at a wedding altar, you would enter into this giving relationship. Benevolence, your husband is in need, and you have abundance, plenty of it, and render to your husband. Next verse 4. The wife, I love to tease my wife about this verse. Sorry for laughing. The wife hath not power of her own body, but the husband. Likewise also the husband hath not power of his own body, but the wife. Here's the thing about this. Most wives are not going to be impressed with their husband's body. And if you give them their choice, if you say, here I am, babe, have your way, she's going to say, great. I want to take your body to the mall, make sure that your wallet is attached to your body. Let's go. So just, understand your wife's not going to want to do as often with your body what you might want to do with her body. But nonetheless, it is still a picture. And I think the context here is primarily sexual, but I think it's bigger than that. I think it's very broadly just saying, render what your spouse needs. And I'm trying to give you a whole ecosystem of understanding. There's a whole world of needs. There's a good book that Dana and I picked up years ago called His Needs, Her Needs. It is William F. Harley, I think, is the author. His Needs, Her Needs. Funny story behind it. I think I have time to tell it. We picked it up at a Christian bookstore. We've been married about 10 years. We didn't buy it at first. We just opened it because we wanted to see what the list of needs were, okay? I have them. I can pull them up in a different outline and read them to you. The list of needs was on the inside of the book, and so I very quickly pulled it open, and we just stood there in the Christian bookstore, and we looked up what the needs were, and we kind of read them with each other. So here they are, and you guys, this would be fun conversation fodder, okay? Her primary needs: affection, conversation, honesty and openness, financial support, and family commitment. So think about what we've talked about today. Think about how it jives with this list. I looked at her and I said, what affection, what does that mean to you? She said, physical touch that doesn't lead to sex. I said, is there such a thing? I was serious. I was like, what do you even mean? Like, I'm not wired to touch you. As soon as you touch me, the launch sequence begins. That's irreversible. We're not wired to touch our wives without, I'm a little bit embarrassing. I apologize. I'm not wired that way. And she said, well, that's what it means. It's not self-serving. It's affection, physical love that's not self-serving. So I will tell you that's a language I had to learn. It takes time. But you can learn how to hug, nurture, sit close to, and hold your wife without it being you trying to get her to bed. Conversation, we've talked about honesty and openness. I've been married 35 years. I have no idea what that means. All kidding aside, I think it is somewhere in the space of what's really going on in your head. And I just say to my wife, not much. Not much worth talking about. Like, what's going on in my head when I'm with you? Can we make love? That'd be number one. Can we have a sandwich? Number two. And I kind of bounce between those two. So that's about as deep as it gets, honesty and openness. No, honestly, when we take walks, we talk about our dreams, our fears. Sometimes she asks me, what are your burdens right now? That's the kind of stuff. Financial support, that's self-evident. Family commitment, that's reaffirming your covenant love. I'm not going anywhere. I don't need Dana to tell me every day she loves me. I know she loves me. I could really stand to hear from me. from her every day that she believes in me or she appreciates me. That speaks deeply to me. But you know what she asks me regularly, or at least she did for a long time? Do you still love me? Do you still like me? Why? It fuels her fire. She needs me to reaffirm over and over. And that's a need. It's not questioning my faithfulness. I used to take it that way. She just needs to hear it. It blesses her. What are his primary needs? This is William Harley. Number 1, sexual fulfillment. Number 2, recreational companionship. We'll come back to that. Number 3, an attractive spouse. There's some caveat here. Attractive by his standards, not Hollywood's, not the world's. This is so important for women to understand about men. You are his standard of beauty. Honestly, there's nobody ever in the world more beautiful to him than you. Not the cover of any cosmopolitan magazine in the grocery store, not any poster that you got to look away from in any store or mall anywhere. You are more attractive to him. You say, well, even as I age? Yes, even as you age. There's something about it that is even hard to explain, okay? We've been married 35 years. Dana's the same age as I am. She is absolutely beautiful to me. I never get tired of looking at her face or the rest of her. But Satan would love for you to get comparative, and I don't measure up to all this imagery and airbrushed stuff, and then suddenly you just wear your floor-length bathrobe all the time, and that's just not good for your marriage, okay? I'm trying to be practical here. It's just not good for your marriage when we live in a world that's throwing all kinds of imagery all over the place. You are attractive to your spouse, ladies. Domestic support is the home, and admiration and respect was number 5. So we read this list, and Dana says, I said, what's affection? She said, what's recreational companionship? That was the second one on the list. I said, well, I haven't read the book, so I don't know for sure what he thinks it is. I'll tell you what I think it is. It's doing stuff that's fun, that I enjoy doing, but doing it with me. My companion in recreation. She says, okay. She didn't say anything about it. Okay. Well, we happened to be at the time visiting my parents in Pensacola, Florida. At the time, our kids were little. My parents had a boat and a jet ski, a Sea-Doo. And the very next day, after this conversation, we had planned a beach day. We were going to take the boat and the jet ski, the Sea-Doo, across Pensacola Bay. We were going to beach out by Fort Pickens, which is where the Gulf meets the bay. And we were going to spend the day out there picnicking and boating and having a good time with our family and our kids. So we go to this little bayou area in Pensacola where we're putting the boat in the water and we're putting the Sea-Doo in the water. And I loved riding that Sea-Doo. Every time we got to go to my parents for vacation, riding that Sea-Doo was just like total decompression for me. Loved it. So I'm planning to ride the Sea-Doo across Pensacola Bay. And I've kind of like called dibs, right? Because I live across country. My brothers ride it all the time, and it's my turn. So my mom says, hey, the Sea-Doo holds 2 or 3 people. Does anybody want to ride with Carrie across Pensacola Bay? The last person I would have expected to say yes was my wife. But she says, I will. And I look at her and I'm like, no. And I start laughing and I go, you don't understand. I said, I'm going to get on this Sea-Doo, and as soon as I pass the sign that says no wake, I'm going to gun this Sea-Doo all the way, pedal to the metal, and I'm going to be zipping across Pensacola Bay. It's choppy. The water is rough. We're going to be bouncing. It's going to be spray flying in our faces. We're not going to be able to see where we're going. It's going to be like a rocket across this bay. And I looked at her, I said, you are going to make me slow down. And I said, I don't even want you on the back of that Sea-Doo because you're going to want me to go all the way across, And she goes, no, I won't. I'll ride. And I said, no, you don't understand. Let me say it another way. You're going to fall off this Sea-Doo. And I'll try to come back and get you before the sharks get you. But there are sharks and other things in that water, and you're going to get eaten. And I could not dissuade her. She's going to wreck my ride across Pensacola Bay. I can feel it coming. And she is unmoving, unbending. She's like, no, I will ride that Sea-Doo with you. And I said, you're going to make me go slow. She goes, I won't make you go slow. You're going to fall off. If I fall off, I fall off. I'll ride with you. I'm like, all right, you have been warned. So she gets on the back of that Sea-Doo. We putter out to the no-wake zone. And as soon as we got to that sign and past that sign, I said, okay, are you ready? Hold on. She buried her head in my ski vest and on the back of me, and she wrapped her hands around, and she started holding me so tight I couldn't breathe. I said, let go a little bit. I need to breathe. She's loosened up a little bit. She just buried her head in, and I gunned that Sea-Doo, and we started shooting across that bay, and we are bouncing. We're catching air, and we are hitting hard. Boom, boom. And that spray, I can't even see where I'm going. It is hitting us in the face. She's holding on for dear life, and we are zipping across there as fast as we can. It was total chaos. And I know she cannot be having fun. This is not fun to her. So I'm wondering, what game is she playing? Where is this coming from? This is not the woman I expect. And halfway across the bay, she screams at the top of her lungs, is this meeting your need for recreational companionship? When she said that, my heart absolutely filled. I'm like, she is suffering torment because she thinks this is meeting my need for recreational companionship. At the top of my lungs, as we're whipping in water, I said, yes! And screaming across this bay. And I'll tell you what, if she could have not done that, it wouldn't have mattered really at the end of the day to me. But the fact that she was doing that, thinking that was one of my needs, just took it to the next level to me. I'm like, wow, what a woman I have. So we've laughed about that for many years. So look at this next verse. Verse 5, defraud ye not one the other. Defraud is kind of got a, we think of fraud, we think of criminal behavior. Defraud is withhold. And I mean, it's a very strong word. God is saying you have some things that your spouse can only get from you. And it's nearly criminal to withhold it. Husbands, it's nearly criminal to work so much and be so preoccupied with your hobbies, your sports, your games, whatever you do, that you're not meeting your wife's relational and emotional needs. She shouldn't be getting her relational emotional needs from her mom or from romance novels or from the Hallmark Channel or Great American Family movies or whatever else it is. It's nothing wrong with having a good relationship with your mom. Nothing wrong with reading a Christian romance book. Nothing wrong with watching a Hallmark movie. I'm just saying, if she doesn't get you, she'll look for her somewhere, okay? Don't withhold. Wives, don't withhold from your husband what you've promised to bring to that relationship and what God created him to need from you. It's holy, it's right, it's good. Defraud you not one the other, except it be, accept. Now look at that word accept. And this is important. Let me give you my other points because now I'm getting into the last point. We're going to come back to that verse. So the fourth thing that fuels fires in marriage is, hold on, let me find it. Here it is. Give time and focus. Number 4 is time and focus. This is embedded into 1 Corinthians 7. It's embedded into 2 Peter. Dwell with them according to knowledge. Time and focus. So you understand your unique spouse. How's your husband, how's your wife wired? What are the needs? What do they mean to your spouse? And now it boils down to this. When do you fulfill these needs? And I will tell you, for Dana and I, we struggled for 7, 8, 9 years because we just allowed other things to fill our time. We kind of thought the fires of our marriage would be on autopilot, that it would just happen automatically. And it didn't. We ended up back to back, didn't know what to do, ended up in a standoff, didn't know how we got there, didn't really understand what it was. Satan tempts us to think, well, maybe we're in the wrong relationship, maybe we chose the wrong person, maybe we're just not compatible, all that garbage. And God said, no, it's really just about you've neglected some basic things. You have to come back to some basic things. Understand what are the needs. And basically, what do I put on your fire? What do I put on the coals of your heart that create flames, that cause you to fall in love? And then once you have the list, once you know what it is, when are you going to do it? Give it time. Give it focus. It really boils down to that shoulder-to-shoulder, face-to-face reality. And Harley in his book says that dating couples spend an average of 15 hours a week together. But married couples spend less than 5 hours a week together. And then you go, well, no wonder dating couples are drawing so close and married couples are coming apart. But the thing is, it's easy when you're single and dating to find that 15 hours. And when you're married, it's pretty hard to find even 3 or 4. But you have to fight for it. You have to be committed to it. You have to carve it out. And it comes back to especially the kids, but it could be hobbies, it could be sports, it could be other interests, it could be other friendships and relationships. Honestly, it can be even church. It can be good things. I'm not saying skip church because you're going to have a happy marriage. No, that's a bad approach. I'm saying you get overcommitted to too many things, extracurricular things, and too many obligations. You can get into the Martha-Mary contrast. You know, you become Martha, you're trying to be all things to everybody, and you're neglecting your spouse. Let me tell you the win, the practical win on this. Yeah, we're okay. The practical win for me and Dana was somewhere about 8, 9 years in. We made a commitment to take it 7 days at a time. And every 7 days, we decided to embrace a 15 to 30-minute discipline. And this was a game changer. And we did this until our kids were out of the house. Sometime in the week, when one week is coming to an end and the new week is beginning, find 30 minutes, 20 minutes even. First half of that, look back on the last 7 days and ask yourself, how'd we do? And look at your whole life. Look at all your God-given roles. Look at your marriage, your parenting, and your work, and your ministry, and other things. And everything God wants you to do, how'd you do last week? What roles that God's given you thrived and you did well, and what roles suffered? Did you neglect any of your roles? Ask your spouse, did you get enough time with me last week? Did I meet your needs last week? Did we miss it? Did we hit the mark or did we miss the mark? Don't get defensive. Seek to learn. Work on this together. How did we do last week? And then, with that in view, look at the next 7 days to come. And ask yourself, when are we going to be married this week? When are we going to be face to face? When is time for us? And then same thing, when do our kids get time with us together? When are we going to be a family? When do they get individual time? When am I going to take each kid out and spend time with them? And maybe that's not every week. Maybe that's once a month. I don't know the rhythms you want to carve out. I got one-on-one time with our kids at least once every 2 weeks. We got family time every week. Unless we're traveling or something, we made it up. And I got an entire day with every kid in the family at least twice a year. That was kind of our rhythms. One day, like me and Lance all day, then me and Haley all day, and then me and Larry all day, just that kid. And we would do what that kid wanted to do. It's just good. It's just a good parenting thing. But ask yourself, when are we going to be a couple? When are we going to spend time face to face, talking, connecting, walking, cherishing, nurturing, making love? When? Plan it. Be deliberate about it. If you don't, you'll go long periods of time and it'll just get swallowed up. You won't give it. I promise you, if you don't give your marriage time and attention and focus, it won't flourish. And I promise you, if you do, it will. It really boils down to that simple. I talked about cancer, and I'll tell you this. Cancer really awakened me at a new level on this. We had really busy lives. I would say it was the epicenter of our busyness as a family. Our oldest was second year of college. Middle was in senior year, coming into his senior year, high school. Haley was coming into junior high, finishing elementary, and now I have cancer. And suddenly life became, I was home most of the time. And there were good days, bad days. There were maybe morning would be bad and afternoon would be good even some days. But there was a lot of time that I just had with my wife and with my kids. I was sick and I didn't really work. So we'd sit on the couch. We'd binge watch shows together, and we'd order pizza and drink chocolate milk together. And, we just hung. We just together. And towards the end, we were with Kaiser Permanente, and their cancer hospital is in Hollywood. It's a Kaiser Sunset. So my chemo was in Lancaster, California, in the desert, but my radiation the last month was every day. You had to get radiation every morning. So Kaiser gave me an apartment in Hollywood, and they said, be down here, be at the office Monday at 8 o'clock, and then Tuesday, and all the way through Friday. And then they give you the weekend off. And so for a month, I lived in Hollywood with Dana. And then we would go home on the weekends. Some of the time our kids were with us, and sometimes they were staying with friends. But for that whole month, it was just all day with Dana. In Hollywood, by the way, is not nice. It's just a junky place. But it was just the two of us. And I would go in for my radiation, and I would rest most of the day. And then maybe we'd go out to dinner or go to an area mall or someplace to walk. And that last week together, as those last treatments were happening, we got to spend a lot of time. And I told her something. I said, Dana, I got to tell you, there's some part of this cancer journey that I'm actually going to miss it, but I'm also telling you I don't want to go backwards in this. And she's like, what? And I said, having all this time with you has been an amazing gift. I said, we got so busy with life that I forgot how much I like you. And I'm like, it's not like I was out of love with you, but I've just fallen in love with you at a whole new level. And I said, whatever happens and wherever we go, we're not going back to that schedule. We're not going back to that life where we were just running hard. I said, I like slow walking with you. And we've had a pretty busy life the last 13 years, but we've never gone back to that kind of craziness. And God's been honored in that. If I could say it this way, I'm just speaking from the depths of my heart to you. We all watched Charlie Kirk get assassinated this week. If you haven't seen it, I hope you don't have to. But you see something like that, and all of a sudden it's like, man, what's really important in life? My son was talking to me on the phone. He called me when it happened, but he was crying hard. And we've talked numerous times since. And he goes, Dad, I want to mow my lawn. But he's like, I don't really even care. He's like, I just want to hug my wife and my kids. The lawn can wait. He's thinking about doing his doctorate degree. He said, I want to do my doctorate, but I don't even care anymore. I just want to hug my kids. I just want to hug my wife. He goes, life is really fragile. And when you see something like this, it just awakens you. And I want you to think of it on this level. When you put your marriage and your family next to Jesus as your highest priority, you are honoring him. It is honoring to God when you do that. When you say to your spouse, I want to cherish and meet your needs. I want to discover what they are, and I want to meet them. And I want to meet them so you meet mine. That's not the game. I want to meet them because Jesus calls me to meet them. I want to love you because he loves me. And I want to learn to love loving you. I want to learn to love seeing you come alive. That's next level. It just is so wonderful and so rich and so joyful, cherishing this person. But here's the beauty of this. I never thought of this as seeking first the kingdom. I know the kingdom of God is the church and the mission and the Great Commission and the souls, lost souls. But you know what a part of seeking the kingdom first, seeking Jesus' kingdom, Jesus' heart first, is loving the people he gave you to love. And what did Jesus say? When you seek first my kingdom, all these things will be added. So God said in 1 Samuel, them that honor me, I will honor. He said to the group in Haggai, consider your ways. You're earning wages and putting into a bag with holes. You're clothing and drinking and eating, but you're never full, you're never warm, you're never satisfied. You're looking for much and it came to little, and what you brought home, I blew it apart like a dandelion. I'm just saying, you can be on a hamster wheel in life, trying to pay your bills, trying to pay your mortgage, trying to stay alive, trying to survive, and you're working against yourself. You put God first, you love your family like he commands you to love them, he'll make sure your bills are paid. Guaranteed, promise. All right, I gotta shut up. Let me give you the last one. Time and focus, last two. Number 5 is create romantic adventure, surprise, and intrigue. We already read about it in Song of Solomon. Here's the challenge. Plan adventure together as a couple and do it for each other. Does that make sense to you guys? Have an affair with your spouse. Now tease that out for a minute. Why do marriages why do they get stale? Because couples stop thinking creatively. They stop enjoying the adventure together. So get creative. Plan a getaway. Remember the vineyards? Remember the pomegranate? Remember the turtle doves? Plan the adventure. Get away. Get the kids with a babysitter. They'll be fine. Make it somebody you trust. But you need to get away. A couple times a year, get a 2 or 3 day getaway and go make love and go walk and talk and rekindle, fuel the fire and imagine it and be creative about it and go to, it's not about a lot of money. Just make it fun for the other person. And if you were going to have an affair, there would be this intrigue in it. You'd book a hotel. You'd try to keep it secret. You'd sneak around. You'd have secret text messages to each other. And it would all be illicit. It would all be dishonoring to God. It would all be, the mystery and the intrigue is what would be enticing to you, but it would be destructive. So here's my proposition. Do that for your spouse. Have all the planning, all the intrigue, all the mystery, all the fun, but with your spouse. Why not? Anyway, I could tell you a lot of stories there, but and the final one is number 6, adjust your expectations. So look at the last verse in this passage. He says, well, defraud you not one the other, except there are exceptions. There are seasons in your marriage where you're not meeting each other's needs, and it's really by design. Providence, maybe you could say. So what do you do when you can't meet each other's needs? What are those times like? Well, there would be maybe your child's in the ICU. Your parents are on their deathbed. You've had a car accident. You've had a tragedy, cancer. You delivered a baby C-section and you got a 6-week recovery. You've got a premature child that's contracting and you're on bed rest. You've got a TDY because your job sent you away for a month. What are the times in life where you can't meet each other's needs? And what do you do? Number 1, what's the word? You consent. You guys okay? You with me? Consent. Talk about it. You're not creating a new normal. You're not withholding because you're too busy. You're decisionally going forward. Hey, this is a different season, and we can't do for each other what we normally do. So we're going to consent. We're going to talk about it. And give yourselves to fasting and prayer. Make your marriage and your spouse a matter of prayer during that time. God, protect our marriage as we go through this hard time, this navigate this season. And then what do? Come together again. Make sure that season ends. It has a beginning and an ending, and you make it end. And you say together, we're resuming normal operations. Okay, we're going forward. And if you do that, Satan won't tempt you for your inconstancy, for your lack of meeting each other's needs. So the principle here is sometimes in marriage, you have to adjust your expectations. So look at the 6 things, the list of 6 things. What was the first one? Reaffirm your covenant. What was the second one? Quench fatal attractions. Get off the market. Third one, understand your unique spouse. We talked about that. 4th one, give time and focus. 5th one, create romantic adventure, surprise, intrigue, okay? And number 6, adjust your expectations. I promise you, if you come back to those 6 things, your marriage will flourish. And the romance will stay alive, and your love will grow deep. Okay, let me pray, and then I'm going to ask Ray and Tim to come up, and we've got about 6 questions. Did you guys get any more? Okay, let's pray. Lord, thank you for this time. We've covered a lot of ground, shared a lot of perspective. Lord, I pray that there would be follow-up conversations, but not arguments. I pray that we would drop our defenses and really seek to understand each other and to bless each other. Help us to learn to love like you love and to enjoy self-giving love, blessing the other, and help our marriages to flourish. And as they flourish, our families will flourish and our churches will flourish. And that's the way you designed it to work. So thank you for your grace. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, Ray. All right, cool. So let me read you some questions, and Tim, you can be thinking about these, okay? Okay. The best way to overcome conflict regarding expectations in the home and family when one spouse is working and the other stays home. Next question. Is the term happy wife, happy life a true statement? Next question. What should you do when your marriage has gotten into a season of contentment? You're busy with daily life, raising a family, serving others. Your marriage is not filled with arguing, but it's also not growing and abounding in love. Is this bad? What should you do to keep growing in love? Next question. How do I learn to survive my in-laws? That was actually my question I submitted. Next question. What does the Bible say about the wife working in the home versus helping to earn the family living, like 2 Thessalonians 3:10, which is the verse about doing your own business? And I just read it a minute ago, but okay, are there more?
Yep. There's a couple more. I'll read these off
Okay.
the bottom. Yeah. There you
What are
go.
the last 2?
Yeah. So while he's looking at those, let me give you just a quick introduction. Tim Treber pastors Hillview Baptist Church in Surprise, Arizona. You guys planted that church how long ago?
2017, October 1st.
So
8 years ago this
8
upcoming
years ago.
October.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I remember when Tim came to town and connecting, and just thankful for the ministry on that side. Yeah. So with a little experience, but Tim is also a pastor's son and raised up in the ministry, church life, and so would understand a little context of ministry as well as family. And so let's kind of just, what we'll do is start at the top of the questions, kind of work ourselves down them and kind of bounce off each other a little bit. And I'll say this as well, if you get to one that you really thought you hammered well and you just want to move on to something that we haven't hammered, let's just do it that way.
I think all these are worth a brief comment. So, Ray, we'll start with you. And first question is, best way to overcome conflict regarding expectations in the home and family when one spouse is working and the other stays home?
Oh, that is a great question. You know, I've watched my mom and dad do this. You know, they live this life. And mom and dad both working at times, and then there would be opportunities where they weren't. I think there has to be a change of thought because your spouse is working. And so if that was asked by a gentleman whose concern is, I'm working all day, but she's at home doing nothing, there has to be a change, a rethinking of what is actually taking place in the home. Being a stay-at-home mom is fully a full-time job. And I watched that in the life of my wife before she started working here at New Life. She did stay at home in our first pastorate. She did not come into the office. And I felt like I worked less by the time I got home than she did. But for me, there was never, and this is not a bragging point for me, there was never a thought once in my thinking that she wasn't working. I knew when I was at the office, she was at home working, laboring, taking care of the kids. all day long. And so it would have been it's just not even in my thinking, a wrong expectation to come home. Because the Bible speaks of that, even in Proverbs 31, of the intensity of that. And so, yeah, I think it's got to be a readjustment of the thinking.
Yeah, for me, I think as I answer that question, my mom and dad growing up were absolute neat freaks. We would, every morning, would vacuum the house before to school. My dad's got carpet in the garage that he steam cleans 3 times a year. So it's just the expectation I went to in marriage was our house is always going to be Pinterest ready. My wife grew up in the country of Iowa, and I quickly realized that there was different, not that our house is ever messy and dirty, but there's different expectations. And so for her, I look at what she does even now. She's a stay-at-home mom, homeschools 3 of our 5 children, works probably 20 hours a week for our church from the home. And so to add on to that some of the other expectations that I could have had, I've had to change my mind and give grace for what she does in the home and understanding that she's not Superwoman and she can't do everything. And this is where I've had to step it up in my own love and affection that I can do some things around the house as well and not just expect my wife to do everything. So for me, it's been lowering the expectations of what our present reality is and then trying to contribute as well to helping those expectations, whatever it is in the house, whether it's cooking, which I try to do on Mondays, and I haven't done that recently because of life situations, but trying to see what I can do to be an assistant, to be a help with managing chores, family, and all that happens inside the home, and giving grace towards her in her role, her responsibility of what she does with church, herself, and also our children.
I don't have really anything to add. I agree with both what they said. The stay-at-home wife or mom is working. I think the exception would be if there's a couple that doesn't have children and her main thing is to stay at home and watch TV all day. Then I would feel differently about this. But staying at home is a full-time job. And I've always been thankful for a wife that we had that traditional model mostly. I mean, Dana's always had some sort of side income, but mostly stayed at home. That was the best decision we made in terms of teaming together, her being at home with the kids, me working. That's not the common model today, but I still think there's a biblical essence where God says that the woman is responsible for the keeping of the home. Whether she stays home and does it all herself or whether she's working and then helping to make sure it happens, that's up to you guys to decide. I would say the answer is found in compromise and loving negotiation, where you just work together to figure out what are the best solutions for you.
Yeah, he mentioned something I want to tag onto that really quick if we could. You said the word team.
Yeah.
And I think what oftentimes happens is we come to the table with this attitude of, hey, I've done my part and I'm comparing it
Yeah, it's bad.
to you doing your part, and I actually am 3 points up on you and you're 2 points low, and I want you to bring like it's a competition all the time of who can work the most and who can do the most. And it's not. It's the piecing of a puzzle. It's us. It's not you. And so making sure that you, again, it's a matter of rethinking.
Yeah. I'd like to start on this one, but I'll be brief. In counseling several ladies whose husbands have been unfaithful, they made statement or claims that the man's sexual desire is a strong want, but not an actual need. That men say that it's a need to get it, in other words. How do you answer this biblically? Okay, very good question. It's a need, but it's not a need for survival. Like, I don't need sex to be alive. I need water and food and sleep to be alive. But if you want your marriage to be alive, then yeah, that's a relational need. It's a definite God-given relational need that's intrinsic to the marriage. So a woman saying that's not a need is your husband never has permission to go outside of the marriage. But what you're essentially saying is, it would be equivalent to you saying to your child, that thirst you have for a cup of water is not a need, and I forbid you to have water. Like, your child's not going to do well, okay? your marriage is not going to do well if you don't see your husband's needs physically, sexually as needs. Their wants, their desires, but they're God-given desires. They're naturally recurring desires. And in that respect, I think they're needs. They're just relational needs. They're emotional needs. They're physical needs on a different level. Then it's not about biological survival. It's about the survival of the relationship. So, any of that?
Yeah, I agree. I think what's important to remember in that aspect too is that no, it's not a need for survival. Therefore, you don't have permission to look outside of the marriage ever. That's never right. And so, if there's a breaking down or a brokenness within the structure or within the individual, then at that moment you're going to have to find that emptiness fulfilled through Christ and the emptiness fulfilled through the Word of God until growth comes on both parts, right? And I just see God navigating that within a spiritual realm then versus having that physical need met, but both parties have to be right, and that's a full reliance on the Spirit of God.
Yeah, a man who's not having his needs met is a struggling man. But his call in that case is to struggle.
Yeah.
It's to be faithful, stay pure, stay right, be honorable, be faithful to your wife. But I just read it to you, 1 Corinthians. Paul said, you're putting your husband in a place of temptation. And that's not right either. Anything to add?
You hit it all.
Okay.
That's really good.
All right, Tim, why don't we start with you? Is the term happy wife, happy life a true statement?
Let me ask, is that, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, I think it's true, right? Is a happy husband, happy life. I mean, it's a privilege to, you mentioned earlier, to serve my wife. I tell my wife all the time, I want her to see a visible expression of the love that Jesus has for her through how I serve her and how I care for her and how I love her. And she's not temperamental. She's not needy. She's not compulsive and obsessive. But I think I want my wife's life to be happy. I desire that to be the case. And the old statement is, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And I think the same thing can be true in the home with the husband, right? If they're not happy, there's conflict, there's problems, there's stress. And I think we want to view that as an opportunity to lovingly serve our spouse.
I have a statement that I heard a marriage conference teacher say one time. I never forgot it. He stood up and said, I have two goals in life. Number one goal, please Jesus. Number two goal, please my wife. And I'm like, that's amazing. That is an honorable life. So there's certainly nothing wrong with making your spouse happy and actually delighting to do that. All right, let's go to Ray. What books or resources do you recommend?
Well, I had a moment of change in our marriage when I read the book, Love and Respect. And that one was truly influential. To me, though, this is a caveat. The book is great, but by the time you get to chapter 3 and 4, the rest of the chapters are just reiterating what you've already learned in 3 and 4. So it's almost like a book you could read the first 1 or 2, 3 chapters and just lay the rest of the book down. But because the principle is so clear there. But you said it today in that what a woman desires more than anything else is love and nurturing, and what a husband desires more than anything else is that respect. But what he does is compare it to God. What does God ask for from the believer? What does God want from us? He wants us to honor him, right? And respect him and reverence him. Reverence me. Fear the Lord. That's the beginning of wisdom. And the word fear doesn't mean to tremble necessarily, but the understanding of reverence. And what does God do for his church? He loves us, right? The bride, he loves the bride. And it was just a beautiful picture. That was one good one for me.
Yeah, Love and Respect is a good one. His Needs, Her Needs is a great book. There's some podcasts, and I'm trying to think about some that I've listened to that they deal with. There's one called the Naked Marriage Podcast. I've listened to several of their episodes. That's been a help for me. And it's not all about intimacy. It's relational. That's been a good one. And again, when I recommend things like that, I'm careful to say that everything in those things is not things that I wouldn't necessarily agree with. But those 3 have been helpful. I'm trying to think of any other off the top of my head, and nothing's really coming to mind. But those three primarily.
So I agree with these books. The ones we usually put a book table out for our marriage conference, and Keller's book is called The Meaning of Marriage. I've heard very good things about that book. Paul Tripp, do you remember what his is called?
Yeah, we use Paul Tripp here a lot.
He has a book on marriage. It would be gold. Some of these books, here's what I would say. There's broadly 3 categories of Christian books on marriage. There are those like we're talking about that are just general about biblical approach to marriage. Some of them are more theological, like how the gospel would shape your marriage to love like Christ. Some of them are more practical, like nuts and bolts on your relationship. I have every couple that I'm counseling read a book called Starting Your Marriage Right by Dennis and Barbara Rainey. It's really, even if you're in the first 5 years of marriage, it'd be an amazing read. Short chapters, but topics every couple should talk about. The second category is books, Christian books that are more clinical about the physical relationship. One is, the one I require young couples to read is called Intended for Pleasure. And it's written by a doctor, a Christian doctor. It's about the biology of sex and blessing and pleasing one another. There's a third category of marriage books that Dana and I have been periodically blessed with over the years. I would say they're Christian books, but they're not about the clinical part of intimacy. They're about the enjoyable part of intimacy. Dana read a book years ago called Red Hot Monogamy. I didn't read the book, but she loved it. And I could tell she loved it by her behavior towards me. I'll just stop there. And we picked up a book at a Christian bookstore by Kevin Leman, Lehman. Leman is a Christian psychologist. I have found his stuff not to be overtly or heavily theological, but always really, really good, practical, both on parenting and on marriage. And this book was called Sheet Music. And it was basically how to enjoy the physical life in your marriage. And that is not, I will tell you, I'll just tell you right now, do not leave that book laying around for your kids to pick up, okay? Because it is direct, but it is honorable, it is biblical. And the way he approaches it within biblical bounds, Dana and I read it and it helped us. It caused us to break out of some of our routines and to talk to each other about that part of our relationship. Most couples don't talk about this part of their relationship, and it forced us to. And it caused us to grow in that area. And so those are the 3 categories. And I would say ask your pastors about authors and publishers, because each publisher, each author is going to have maybe their slant or their bent. So I'd be careful and just use discretion before you just, everything that calls itself Christian is not Christian. So just be careful. But there's a lot of really good stuff out there in the reliable Christian world. Okay. What do you do when your marriage has gotten to a season of contentment? You're busy with daily life, raising a family, serving others. Your marriage is not filled with arguing, but it is not also growing or abounding in love. Is this bad? What would you do to keep growing in love? Tim.
I think that's a spot to be in, that it shows health in the marriage, that there's not arguing, that there's not conflict. But it also shows some potential danger, like what you mentioned today, that it can become very easy to have that back-to-back. And I think that's when that season happens, that you can put it in coast and neutral and let it do what it's supposed to be doing. But it's not being fruitful, it's not being productive. So for situations like that, I would just say you would have to just become more intentional in the time that you have together. Fight for it, working for it, strive for it, block out time in your schedule for it. We've got 5 kids at home, and we've got 4 different sports schedules right now, a church, coming through a season of life that's been incredibly difficult. And so even a moment like this, just to come today, is very healthy. And so we've got to fight for it. Early mornings, my wife likes to get up early, go to the gym, and come down together, sit in the sofa, and maybe read a devotion together, and catching every moment we possibly can to be able to, whether it's a car ride, going out to the grocery store together, whatever, and it not being content with status quo, and not just a marriage that's surviving, but working together to make it thrive.
I agree with that fully, but adding being creative. In moments like that, you got to come out of the box. You've got to get creative and make it intentional. I love that word that you used, intentionality. And Robin and I, every year, we kind of messed up recently, but every year we try, like you say, to get away, just us, leave the kids somewhere and go off and just get away and do things that we both enjoy, to do. But being intentional is so important, especially when you see that lull. But I really think you answered that question in the second session when you gave that illustration, right? I thought it was good.
Yeah, to me, the only thing I would add is two thoughts quickly. This sounds to me like the difference between a B- marriage and an A+ marriage. It's like, do you want to coast at B- or do you want to enjoy and really fuel what you have? And then the second thought I want to throw in that I didn't cover in the sessions is, I think an added layer of incredible blessing and joy in your marriage is a shared purpose. God didn't just bring us together to take long walks and make love. Your marriage has a purpose. And for Dana and I, ministry has been our shared purpose. Yeah, she's a stay-at-home mom. Yeah, I'm a pastor. But every book I've written, every time I go speak somewhere, every opportunity I have to serve my church, she is the unseen hero in the picture, sharing that mission with me and believing in it, and we're doing it together. I've asked her often, and I'm not against this, by the way. I've asked her, do you want to pursue a degree? Do you want a career? Do you want to teach? Do you want to be something? You want to be a nurse? Do you want to? And she's like, I am thrilled and happy in life to be your wife, to be a mom, to run beside you, to be what you need me to be with you as a pastor, and to be a nana and watch our grandkids now in this phase of life. She is extremely full and busy in her life and schedule. She's working hard, and she's flourishing. But it's this together thing, and I think I'm not opposed to both having careers and tracks and trajectories, but if you don't have a shared mission or purpose, you're missing out on a layer of joy that is worth considering. Okay, two more real quick, and then we got to eat, right? Ray, how do I learn to survive my in-laws? Wait, this is the one you submitted. Maybe we should talk about no.
Come up with a lot of jokes about your mother-in-law. That always helps keep things balanced. I almost think the pressure is on the in-laws. And for the older couples that are here today, and I'm, obviously Emily just walked in and we're venturing into that. But I love what you said. And when you said it, I was back there nodding. This is their world now. You said it last night, right? My responsibility is to be available when they give me that opportunity. My responsibility is not to tell them what to do and try to impose our family traditions upon their lives, right? They're creating their family traditions, and I hope to be invited in it, right? And love it if we are. But it's so important to recognize the weight is actually on mom and dad, the in-laws. But if you don't have that, you're going to have to put your foot down. And I mean this because you're becoming one. And y'all can disagree, and I would love to hear your opinion on it. But, we've had to do that over the years. There have been times we just said, no, you cannot come over. And that's hard. But this is our family time. No, you cannot show up during this season. We're doing something. Or Christmas is really hard for us because Robin loved the idea of our family having Christmas 25, the 25th, just be our day. So if you want to come, you got to come on Christmas Eve, or you got to come, the next day. But Christmas Day is our family. We're going to be, and that was hard. But we put our foot down, and then they had to navigate around it, right? And it got better. There's with both sets of family, there's no hardship between any of us now, and they took it. But again, I have to leave the home as the leader and put the foot down and just say this is our family now, right? But maybe you can help balance that.
Yeah, you move 1,000 miles away and plant a church. That's the easy way to do it. Yeah. We were there in California. My wife could probably answer the question better than I could. I've never had to live around my in-laws, My mother-in-law is with the Lord, and she had to. I think the word that I would use is that we have had to, though we come from a good Christian home, the word boundaries. And as our family, we've had to establish those. And sometimes there's some resistance from family, but that's just how we're going to lead our family. That's how we're going to be the people that shepherd our children. And we establish them and we enforce them. But the word, and Boundaries is a great book to read for that. But that's what we've done with family.
So the only thing I would add to this is, as your first loyalty as a married couple is to your spouse. Let's just start there, okay? Not your parents. So when there's tension or when there's a disconnect between your parents, not your in-laws, I'm talking about your parents, and your spouse, your first obligation is to your spouse. You have a family, okay? It is, I agree with Ray, there's a burden on the in-laws to back away, know their space, enter in when they're invited, be open and respectful. I think also there's a little bit of pressure, maybe, weight on the spouses to help the other navigate that with. So I want to help Dana navigate her relationship with my parents. This is what I'm getting at, with her in-laws. I'm going to say to you, my first loyalty is to you, not my mom and dad. But here's how my mom and dad are wired, and here's how maybe together we could bless them. Because we do want to honor them. We don't want to break relationship with them. And some, in-laws can be filled with expectations. You're not going to be able to meet all those expectations. But there's also nothing wrong with, in love, seeking to understand what they are and meeting the ones you can in love. But what I would say is I think the win is in working together to help your spouse. I want to help Dana deal with her in-laws, and she helps me immensely in dealing with my in-laws. But our first loyalty is to each other. So that's what I would add there. Okay, almost done. Last one. I think we kind of helped with this one. What does the Bible say about the wife working in the home versus helping to earn the family living? I would say she's not obligated to earn the family living, but most couples in today's environment, in economy, in America, there has to be at least a full-time income and a part-time secondary income. In our case, we worked hard to make my income livable, and that's how we've done it. And Dana's income has always been secondary side income. Things we do with that income are discretionary, gifts, blessings to others, vacations, things for the kids, whatever. So, Ray?
Yeah, they're referencing the verse in the 2 Thessalonians 3:10, and contextually coming from the standpoint that Paul would have come from, having been of Jewish descent, but not a Jew, right? Being Greek. You'd have to understand what he was saying contextually in that passage, but the passage is the one referring to if a person doesn't work, he doesn't eat. Well, in that culture, that would not have applied, especially in that culture, like more than ours, that would have not applied to the spouse. It would apply to the working man in the family, because that culture is different than ours. We live in a definite culture where there are a lot more ladies that are working than in that culture would have been hardly any, especially in the Jewish culture, right? And so that is not an applicable verse to the context by which you're trying to put it in. If a man doesn't work, he doesn't eat. But I'd also recognize, too, that some families have put themselves in such a predicament that the second spouse has to eat, and that almost sounded negative. It has to work, right? Sorry. And yeah, thank you for correcting that. But at the same time, I know sometimes life gives us challenges that if she doesn't help, you may go without. But that's where that teamwork has got to come together. But I definitely wouldn't use that verse to lord over her, right? Because that is not in context at all, right? Yeah.
Just quickly, I think sometimes even in our culture, being a stay-at-home mom can become something that's frowned upon by secular people. And it's a privilege, for moms to be chase keepers at home and guide the home and family. if you find yourself in that position where that's what you're doing, don't feel like you're a second-rate citizen, second-rate Christian. You're raising the next generation of servants and leaders for the glorious gospel of Jesus Christ, and you're making an impact. There are circumstances where there's a financial strain that sometimes that has to be adapted. But I also would ask the question, what's the purpose of the wife or whoever going to get a second job? Is it to increase budget so that we can be more extravagant and get more things and possessions for ourselves? Or is it to put food and milk on the table? Like you said a minute ago, Ray, like that church was looking for the return of Christ. And so they said, it doesn't matter. We're just going to, take it easy and enjoy life and to become busybodies. And that was the wrong thing to be able to do. So I think there's seasons in life where that may be applicable to help support, but check the motive behind why the money is that important for the families to meet needs or to increase opportunity for spending.
Is that it?
Yeah, I love this idea of balance, and I would say the American way of life is worthy of resistance. If you allow the consumerism and the, bigger, better mentality to consume you, it'll eat up your whole marriage and family. You're going to have to say, this is the way we're going to live. We value our marriage. We value our family. We're going to live to honor the Lord, and he will meet your needs. But you're going to have to say no to a lot of that materialism and extra work and overtime, and you're going to have to say no to money so that you can love God first and love what he loves.
Good questions. Thank you guys for this. It is 5:47. In order to keep up with schedule, I'm assuming the meal is ready to go, and we're going to be